In this video, we're looking at ahead to the 2019 Major League Baseball London series. What I'm surprised about is how long it's taken Major League Baseball to come to Europe. They've been to Australia, they've been to Japan, they've been to Mexico, they've been to Puerto Rico, they've even been to China to take preseason games to China. This is their first toe in the water in Europe. There were initially plans to come in 2017. They pushed them back. Last year, they announced they were committed to coming to London for 2 years as a minimum. They signed a 2-year contract. They announced the teams that were playing. They announced the dates, and here we are. So 2 weeks from today is the second game between the Red Sox and the Yankees at the London Stadium. The first game takes place on the 29th. The second game takes place on the 30th of June 2019. So 2 weeks from now. They've played safe with the teams they've chosen, and next year the Cubs and the Cardinals again they've played very safe. They're not taking risks with the teams. They're choosing well-known historical baseball teams to be the flag bearers and the flagship for this European London series that they've chosen. The venue itself, the London Stadium, they wanted to choose the Oval. They were doing studies as far back as 2015. And looking at the Oval Cricket Ground for its central location, because it's more central than Lord's. It's a more modern stadium than Lord's. It's had more refurbishments done. It's been basically rebuilt. It's a beautiful stadium. It's got great transport links to Waterloo. It's right by Vauxhall Station, so it's on the underground. It's on the main line out of London, out the southwest, which actually goes to Feltham and Heathrow. So it's not a million miles away from Heathrow either by train. If you think about it, it's not a million miles away from central London because it's in south central London. And of course, they're expecting a lot of American expats to want to go and a lot of American tourists who are in London to want to go, oh, there's a baseball game on. And they wanted the Oval, but it clashes with the Cricket World Cup, the county cricket season, and the Ashes. The pitch reconfiguration is a lot of work, and the London City Stadium is a multi-use, multi-purpose, multi-sport stadium with retractable seating that can be moved around and manipulated so it suits a baseball configuration. And no football's taking place, or as the Americans and Canadians would call it, soccer is taking place right now because our season's finished and it's the summer. The players are all off playing golf. The English Premier League season doesn't start again till August. And the London Stadium, formerly the Olympic Stadium, has hosted rugby union. It's hosted athletics, obviously the Olympic Games, what we call football with West Ham United. It's going to be a host venue for the Rugby League World Cup as well. So it's a multi-sport venue, and it was the only logical option when the Oval was just not available. They did studies as far back as 2015 for both stadiums, and when it was announced that we were hosts of the Cricket World Cup, which was highly likely at the time, Major League Baseball had to make an option. They chose the London Stadium. It's been a hot potato. We know the controversy around it, but for you Americans who are not aware of the controversy surrounding the London City Stadium, the contract that West Ham have signed, the current mayor is not in favour of it. He believes it's too cheap. The previous mayor was the one who signed off on the contract. There's been issues with the seating. There's been issues with security. There's been issues with policing. We've had issues. There's been a lot of issues to do with the London Stadium. West Ham fans, as a fan base, aren't overly enamoured with the move from Upton Park to the City Stadium in London. They feel they've lost a little bit of the community of the club. They're not happy with the atmosphere. So there are ongoing concerns with the stadium. However, with the seating configuration that they could configure, it could work for baseball as a venue. The broadcast rights, this is where it gets really interesting because the other major leagues all have current broadcast deals with British carriers, be it subscription TV or free-to-air TV as it currently stands. As far as I know, there is no national broadcast carrier in the UK that shows Major League Baseball highlights or games live. So we'll look at the rival leagues in a minute, but the broadcasters that have been selected are the BBC and BT Sport. Now, BT Sport is a sister network because it bought out the rights to ESPN in the UK. ESPN's been chosen as a broadcaster. Fox has been chosen as a broadcaster. So BT Sport is a sort of a sister network to ESPN, buying out ESPN Europe, the rights to it. BBC, national broadcaster. Fox, one of the big networks in the US as well. Fox is a bit controversial over here because there's ongoing issues with some of the Fox channels losing their operating licenses, including Fox News. So Fox is actually a big hot potato as well in the UK. But BT Sport's a big hot potato here in the UK. The BT Sport's been under a lot of criticism as well for a lot of its issues. It's losing money. So we could discuss the issues with BT Sport as well in a separate video. BT Sport's been really controversial and is not overly popular. So will this help Major League Baseball? I don't know. We now look at the rival leagues. Now, the NFL has been hosting London Series games here since 2007. The series has grown, and they've used Twickenham and Wembley, but they're also going to be using the new rebuilt White Hart Lane from this season. They've been a success, plain and simple. There's some controversy about the NFL, and seems to be some tiredness now with some of the fan base going, okay, it's lost its appeal. It's not as special as what it was in 2007. People love the NFL in this country. We have regular broadcasts of the Super Bowl. The London Series games are shown on multiple channels, be it BBC, Channel 4, Sky. It's been shown on a whole host of broadcasters. Channel 5 even got in there at one point. And if you're not aware of what these broadcasters mean to us, I mean, these are national channels that are, take a huge part of our media. Average crowds of over 83,000. There's plans for a London team. There are some that are getting a little bit, okay, it's rubbed off a little bit. Ticket prices are a concern. I think it might have reached its peak fandom. I'm not sure how many new fans are going to buy into the NFL. I think it's got a good solid fan base now. The plans to have a team in London are on the table, but they keep getting pushed down the river a little bit. They were meant to have a team here by now, economic circumstance. They initially planned it would be 10 years before they got a team. They wanted to have a team here by 2015, 2017. It's now 2019. The plans are still on the table. The NBA have been coming here in the preseason games. They first came here in '93, regular season 2011, and they come one game a season. They've been coming on the dot regularly for years. The NBA has an agreement with Sky Sports. Used to have the highlights package on Channel 4 in the 90s, so it's again had a fan base, had media rights here for a very, very long time. It's also well advertised. The NFL, really well advertised. The NBA, really well advertised. The NHL has media rights with Premier Sports and Free Sports. Now, Free Sports is part of the Premier Sports network. So there's 2 Premier Sports channels and 1 Free Sports channel. 2 are subscription, 1 is free to air. They've had an agreement since the network launched. It was previously on Sky. Previously also on Channel 4 and Channel 5, where live games were shown over here. So the NHL has had broadcast rights on and off in the UK for a long time. The first time they came to the UK, 1938. The NHL has been back in 59, 92, 93 and 2007. So the NHL hasn't come back for 12 years, but they've come here as far back as 1938. They saw the UK as a place to play games and engage with fans. Partly because we won the 1936 Olympics and a few other Olympic medals in the 30s and 50s. Hockey in the 50s in this country was professional. Professional era stopped in the 60s. Between the 70s, 80s and early 90s, it was amateur. 92 and 93, the Mighty Ducks film comes out. This is crucial. Space Jam with the NBA. So these have had films made that have been aimed at families, the family audience. Back-to-back years they come. And this is when the NHL starts expanding. Post the 1990, the NHL expansion, the modern expansion era. They last came in 2007, so it's been a while, but they are regularly taking games to Europe as a wider area, wider region. They've announced an expanded European series. So just because they've not been to the UK since 2007, they're still taking games to Europe. They've tapped into the European market long ago. All these leagues have established TV rights. Talking about the broadcasters. So they've also got a head start with engaging with fans. Now, what Major League Baseball have done is sign a 2-year contract. So they're going to be playing games here next year as well. And they've chosen, as I say, the Cubs and Cardinals. So they've played safe with the 4 teams they have chosen for their inaugural 4 games. Their initial games, they've played safe with the teams. It is interesting that they've waited this long to take games here. But in the past, before the London Stadium was built, it would have had to be in a cricket ground, and cricket is played at the same time of year that baseball is. So it would have caused a big clash, and some of the cricket infrastructure isn't necessarily up to, let's say, the capacity of baseball stadiums, because some baseball stadiums in the US and Canada are huge. The capacity of some of our cricket grounds that are test grounds is smaller. So that would have been a bit of a stumbling block. The London City Stadium is built. It's a multi-purpose stadium. It's there. It's got great transport links, to central London, even though it's in northeast London. Great transport links. The Olympic Park is an amazing thing. So there we go. The thing is, Major League Baseball has previously played regular season games in what I call safe markets. They know there's a fan base there. They know the sport of baseball is played in these locations: Australia, Japan, Mexico, and Puerto Rico, and China. But Australia, there's an Australian baseball league that's well participated in, and there's a big fan base. Japan, it's one of the national sports. Mexico and Puerto Rico, Latin America, especially Central America, a lot of the players come from Puerto Rico. Some players come from Mexico. It's a very popular sport with the Latino Hispanic communities in the USA. They have played safe with those locations. Very safe. What surprises me, though, is they're the last of the 4 major leagues to come to Europe. They're the last ones to get a broadcast deal. And one of the broadcasters they have chosen is very controversial right now. BT Sport. That could be a risk. That could be a massive risk. People aren't happy with BT Sport. There's a lot of criticism of the network as a whole for various issues. It's losing money. It's losing TV rights to various leagues and sports that have been picked up by Sky, Premier Sport kind of networks. They're picking up things that BT Sport is losing. This could be make or break for Major League Baseball. The fact they've only signed a 2-year contract and it's not a rolling contract is interesting as well. And the fact that they're so far behind, especially the NFL and NBA, the 2 bigger leagues out of the 4. The NHL has grown massively in the last couple of years with Vegas joining and a better TV rights deal overseas and taking games to Europe. It's a much bigger product now than what it was when it last came to Europe in last came to the UK in 2007. It has grown massively for its overseas fandom and market share. Major League Baseball has had a lot of scandal as well. The steroid scandal really damaged Major League Baseball. There's been multiple player strikes in the 70s and 80s, which damaged the image of the sport. There's been some betting scandals. There's recently been a former Red Sox player shot and badly injured and gunned down in a public place in his home country of Dominican Republic. So there's a lot of things going on with baseball that are negative. I am surprised they've waited this long to come overseas to Europe. We'll see what happens. The fact that they've decided to sign a 2-year contract is a healthy sign, but the stadium they've chosen is a bit of a political hot potato in this country. The broadcast, especially BT Sport, is a big, controversial and a risky choice as a broadcaster. Sky Sports has a bigger reach, and free to air has a bigger reach because not a lot of people are signing up to BT. BT Sport's losing subscribers and money on a daily basis. So BT Sport is a network under pressure, and it's interesting. We'll see what the coverage is like, and we'll see what the viewership is like for TV figures. But one thing I've noticed, there is not a lot of marketing. If they want to grow the game here, they've got to get their marketing strategy right, because what I've seen are adverts online, because I'm a YouTuber. Jimmy Carr, a stand-up comedian, is the face of the marketing campaign here in the UK for the Major League Baseball series. Jimmy Carr is an exceptionally controversial stand-up comic. He's not very popular with a lot of people, partly because of his tax avoidance. He's been involved in a tax scandal, and partly because of his offensive humour has rubbed up a lot of people the wrong way. He's created a lot of controversy in his career. He's not a very popular amongst sports fans. Also, the price of tickets has been criticised as well. So ticket pricing and the marketing campaign have been criticised. If Major League Baseball was to make a success out of this, they have to look at what the other leagues have done with the broadcast rights, when live games are shown, what games they do show. These leagues have got it right. There's a reason why the NHL is just looking at the whole of Europe. It's looking at Germany, Sweden, and Finland at the moment, and I think the Czech Republic for games coming up. The NBA regularly, every season, comes to London. The NFL has got a long-going thing with London, wants to have a team in the country. So, compared to its rival leagues, it's behind. The interesting thing is these 3 leagues all play in the winter, autumn, and early spring. The NBA is spring, summer, and autumn, so they don't really clash. The only league it has to steal fans from is the MLS, and the MLS is not big in Europe. So they have a chance to get that audience share in its time of year when it's played against its rival, which is the MLS. But the other major leagues are more established. They've got bigger fan bases. Players, especially NHL, come from Europe. lot of players. So they're growing not only the playing base but the fan base. Major League Baseball, yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how it does with the Cricket World Cup on as well. That is going to clash. And the Women's Football World Cup, that's getting national coverage, and it's a bit hot debate about the amount of coverage it should get here in the UK, but it's getting a lot of coverage on the BBC. Have they chosen the wrong year with the Cricket World Cup? Should they have come in 2017? That's another question, because they initially planned to come in 2017. So delaying 2 years, is that a risk in itself? It's going to be interesting to see what happens. They got a 2-year contract. I thought I'd do a baseball video because, you know what, this is actually a hot topic right now, because I've seen adverts online, on Twitter, on YouTube, marketing, and their marketing strategy for me is not great. Using Jimmy Carr, the comedian, was not a good idea. Because when I'm on Twitter, the responses I see to it are mostly negative. They're not happy, and people are going, I'm less likely to want to watch now because he's associated with the marketing campaign. The price of tickets is a big thing. It's also not been talked about a lot on news bulletins, sports bulletins, on the sports news. It's not been regularly talked about. So even when we look at the NFL, the NBA, the NHL, they're getting regular announcements on 24-hour news. On the sports briefings early. When I get up for work, the NHL, NBA, and NFL are being talked about on BBC News, on the sports news. They are getting segments talking about those leagues. They're not talking about Major League Baseball. The only thing is they're talking about Ortiz, who got shot. The shooting of the former Red Sox player. There is no other coverage of Major League Baseball. This team is beating this team. This team is leading the standings. This is the favourites for the World Series. They're not talking about it. So it's not getting that media attention. But we'll see what happens. But for now, thank you very much for watching. If you are a baseball fan of Major League Baseball, of any of the teams, the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Cubs, the Cardinals, please feel free to place your comments below. If you're surprised that the Major League Baseball has taken this long to come to Europe, welcome to the club. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what the stadium, how many people come to the stadium. We'll see what the viewership is like on TV. But for now, thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe. Place your comments below, and I will have some more videos for you very, very soon.